Destroy them all. Speed up. Speed up. Option. Two-way missile. Option. Option. Shoot it in the head. Ripple laser. Option.
Never return alive.
Force field. Shoot it in the eyes.
I'll bash you.
Force field. Destroy the core. Destroy the core. Destroy the core. Force field. Force field.
You can't go any further.
Shoot it in the mouth. Force field. Option. Destroy the core. Destroy the core. Shoot it in the eyes. Destroy the core. Shoot it in the mouth. Shoot it in the eye. Destroy the core.
Force field.
Destroy the core. Destroy the core.
Force field. Tail gun. Force field.
I am the strongest. I am just a small portion of the Empire Bacteria. Destroy them all. Destroy them all.
Speed up, speed up. Option. Two-way missile. Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile. Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile. Option. Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile. Speed up. Two-way missile. Option.
Shoot it in the head.
Ripple laser.
You shall never
Option.
return alive.
Force field. Option.
Shoot it in the eyes.
I'll back you.
Force field. Force field.
You shall be crushed.
Destroy the core.
Force field.
Destroy the core. Destroy the core.
Force field. Force field. Force field.
You can't go any further.
Shoot it in the mouth.
Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile. Speed up. Two-way missile. Option. Ripple laser. Option. Force field. Option.
Destroy the core. Destroy the core. Shoot it in the eye. Destroy the core.
Force field.
Shoot it in the mouth. Shoot it in the eye. Shoot it in the head. Destroy the core.
field.
Destroy the core. Destroy the core.
Force field. Tail gun.
I am the strongest. I am just a small portion of the Empire Bacteria.
Speed
Destroy
up.
them all.
Speed up. Option. Two-way missile. Speed up. Two-way missile. Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile. Speed up. Speed up. Tail gun. Two-way missile.
Shoot it in the head.
Speed up. Speed up. Two-way missile.
You shall never return alive.
Ripple laser. Option. Field.
You need some practice.